George R.R. Martin has revealed some brutal thoughts regarding House of the Dragon Season 2, leaving plenty to break down. House of the Dragon Season 2 ending was met with divisive responses, especially after frequent complaints lingering throughout the HBO prequel's sophomore season. Book readers experienced frustration as the show constantly made adjustments to the book material, while others enjoyed the perspective the show writers took in bringing the Dance of the Dragons to life. House of the Dragon is based on the book Fire and Blood, a companion piece to George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire novel series that details the reign of the Targaryen dynasty. Unlike his novels, Fire and Blood examines events in the form of a fictional historical text, often leaving matters vague and suggesting that the narrative is unreliable. Thus, determining what is and isn't accurate to the text is a much more obscure discussion to have. In a post on his blog, which has since been taken down, Martin has explicitly laid out his thoughts and feelings on the matter. What George R.R. Martin has said about House of the Dragon Season 2. For the most part, George R.R. Martin's recent blog post served as an analysis of the Blood and Cheese event, which occurred in House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 1. This was one of the earliest deviations from the source material in the season, as the showrunners essentially changed the dynamic of the scene by removing one of Aegon's sons, Maelor. Martin explains that the decision to do so was due to budgeting reasons for the series. He explains the issue of removing Maelor from the series as a butterfly effect, whereby, in making one change to the narrative, House of the Dragon is forced to make even more changes in the future. He also expressed that he liked his version of the Blood and Cheese version better than the show's, saying, "I still believe the scene in the book is stronger. The readers have the right of that. The two killers are crueler in the book." Overall, Martin seems to be immensely dissatisfied with the treatment of one of the Dance of the Dragon's most pivotal moments. How is George R.R. Martin involved in House of the Dragon? George R.R. Martin receives an executive producer credit for the television adaptation of his books, though it seems as if his direct involvement has varied over time. He's credited as a co-creator, but showrunner Ryan Condal is the one who's allowed the final say on decisions for the TV series story decisions. Condal is not only the lead writer, but he's involved in managing the show's production on all levels, so it makes sense why he'd have to account for House of the Dragon's logistics on top of story elements. Ryan Condal discusses Martin's role on the show here. Ironically, this video was released on the same day as Martin's blog post. George R.R. Martin cares deeply about the adaptations of his writing and seems to be in a position where he can give input and creative advice to the series. Martin's blog post indicates he has an understanding of the financial restrictions that go into developing a series, especially given the heightened amount of dragon action. But it's fair to say he's still disappointed by the narrative losses that have ensued. George R.R. Martin's House of the Dragon criticism comes after fan backlash. George R.R. Martin isn't the only one who was unhappy about House of the Dragon's many book changes. The season was well received for the most part, but a significant portion of the fan base responded to the show with outcry at its repeated changes. Blood and Cheese received notable backlash from audiences for pulling punches on its depiction of one of the most brutal moments in Martin's stories. From there, each change to the books seemed to increase the frustration audiences felt towards the season. GRRM's House of the Dragon comments are different from Game of Thrones. Despite the widely ridiculed Game of Thrones ending, George R.R. Martin managed to remain relatively civil toward the series. He suggested frustration at times when characters had been killed off on the series who were still alive in his books, and when he added that he felt the story needed 13 seasons to be told completely. But Martin never outright criticized Game of Thrones like he did with House of the Dragon, showing how his frustrations have built up over the years. Martin has signed away his material to HBO, who are essentially free to do with it as they please. While showrunners may have desires to provide adaptations that respect the genius of Martin's writing, they're still working under the confines of television adaptation. Between the backlash against Game of Thrones Season 8 and the ever-increasing pressure regarding the Winds of Winter, it makes sense why the 75-year-old author might feel cornered. How George R.R. Martin spoiled part of House of the Dragon Season 3. Not only did George R.R. Martin express some displeasure with House of the Dragon Season 2, but he also outright revealed how Ryan Condal's planned changes would affect the future of the show. He claims that the show's plan is to essentially remove the entire storyline regarding Aegon's children. And he also adds that Helena's death by suicide will still happen, but the show has removed any motivation for the action. He states, "The final stage of this butterfly effect, as he explains, is that Rhaenyra's eventual downfall in King's Landing will be severely altered in the show. In the books, the people of King's Landing riot against Rhaenyra in the aftermath of Helena's death. But in the show, the people seem to love Rhaenyra, and Helena's suicide won't seem to have as much narrative impact." Martin expressed that he doesn't know how the show will handle these events, given the numerous changes, all caused by Marlowe's absence. Is George R.R. Martin right about House of the Dragon? It's really difficult to say whether George R.R. Martin is right or wrong about his comments. He's certainly correct in saying how Mailer's removal has created a sequence of book changes, some of which may detract from House of the Dragon's narrative potential. He's also undoubtedly right in saying Blood and Cheese wasn't as effective in the TV series as it was in the book. But fundamentally, it's impossible to say whether or not House of the Dragon's changes are good or bad until the results have been shown. Will GRM's criticisms change anything about House of the Dragon Season 3? All that can be said about matters occurring behind the scenes with House of the Dragon is speculative, as there's no way of knowing what this process will look like. If Martin has taken to venting about this on his blog, it would appear that his relationship with the TV series has been strained in some capacity. He already stated that he wouldn't be attending the Season 3 writer's room via Martin's blog. It's possible that this outcry will result in Condal and HBO trying to right the ship, repairing their relationship with Martin for House of the Dragon's future. But it's impossible to say for now.